bipolar disorder, manic depressive disorder, there's bipolar 1, bipolar 2. But the thing about bipolar disorder is it's very different than just depression. And there are different levels of bipolar disorder. And you don't need to be afraid of bipolar disorder. When it becomes severe and it's manic depression and then might be mixed with psychosis or some other issues, you need to be very concerned, and you need to make sure you're in the hands of a really, really good psychiatrist and that you're on proper medication. And that is manic depressive disorder, especially when it's coexisting with things like paranoia or psychosis. Again, you don't need to be afraid of these things, but you need to understand that they're very, very severe disorders and you need to be on medication. And please make sure you're working with a doctor who specializes in bipolar disorder. Some of the symptoms of bipolar disorder, the most common symptoms, and the way that you know that you have it, is that you can just be so up. Some people say, I could fly to Paris without a plane, or you're spending money you shouldn't be spending, or you're sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night, and you're manic. You're up, you're energetic, you have these crazy thoughts about things that you can do, money you should spend that you shouldn't spend, you think anything's possible. That's the manic episode of bipolar. You know, ironically, some people just hang out in that place. My husband was bipolar, and he pretty much most of his life really kind of hung out in the manic phase and used that really, really positively. There were times in his life when he suffered with depression. And by the way, this is very often genetic. It ran in his family. And the depression phases weren't good because he was very, very sad. But those weren't very often. But what can happen is you can go through a situation in your life that's very challenging, and what it can do is it can trigger the bipolar disorder, and you can go into the depressive phase. And that can be very frightening for people because you can become suicidal. Sometimes teenagers cut themselves. There are things that people do that are very self-destructive. You can drink too much. Some people act out their bipolar disorder with extreme anger and irritability and violence. So if you tend to have extreme mood swings where one moment, or maybe days or months, you're happy, you're manic, you have tons of energy, you can't sleep, but the other moment you're angry, you're irritable, or you're just severely, severely depressed and crying a lot, and if it gets to the point where you feel paranoid, where you think you're just kind of not really in reality anymore, get help. Get help. Unfortunately, I do believe there are a lot of people who are bipolar who have gone undiagnosed. The other problem with bipolar disorder is that if you put someone on medication that is bipolar and you don't know they're bipolar, it can actually increase the suicide tendencies. If you're on medications that for depression and you have not been diagnosed properly with bipolar disorder, it can increase your thoughts of suicide and suicidal tendencies. So you really need to make sure that you or your loved ones are in the hands of someone who really knows what they're doing when it comes to medication if you're dealing with bipolar disorder. I do believe if you have mild bipolar or mood swings, I think my website has a lot of wonderful coping skills and behavioral techniques you can use to help control some of those mood swings and the way that you're thinking. And until then, I really strongly suggest too that you talk to a professional and get you or your family member help and the right medication for bipolar. Now go live your life.
For more free videos and resources, please visit Lucinda Bassett at lucindabassettcoaching.com. Thank you.